Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a very special NAIDOC program, First Nations, Bush Foods and Plant Uses. My name is Sam and I'm here with my colleague Ivy from Casey Cardinia Libraries. Today we are very fortunate to be doing a partnership program with the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria. As locals will know, the Royal Botanic Gardens at Cranbourne have a big NAIDOC event every year, hosting over 3,000 people. But with COVID restrictions, some programs have had to shift online. We are so glad that the Bush Foods Walk is still able to go ahead virtually and that you are here to experience it with us. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we all meet today. Some of us locally here across the lands of the Kulin Nation, and some of us possibly even joining from lands across Australia and overseas. We'd also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal presenters sharing their knowledge with us today, Steve and Sam, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us in the audience. And we recognise their enduring connection to land and waters. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Ivy will now introduce the presenters for this program. We are so grateful to be learning from them today. If you have questions during the session, please post them in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we will try to ask Steve or Sam for you. And now I'll pass over to Ivy.
Thank you, Sam. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are so lucky to be learning from two very knowledgeable presenters. I would like to introduce you to Steve Yolo Parker, as a proud Boomerang traditional owner and lives on country on Malau, Phillip Island. He's worked at the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria as an Aboriginal learning facilitator for the past 3 years, where he is responsible for developing and delivering a range of nature-based programs for school and community groups. In addition to his work at Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria, Steve is also an accomplished artist with exhibitions and artwork inspired by his connection to country displayed across Phillip Island and beyond. Sam May is a Barrong Wajak Noongar man on his mother's side and Gidja on his father's side. He grew up in Perth and a small country town called Wumra. He originally moved to Melbourne to become a chef and has developed a passion for promoting and educating audiences about the benefits of different native plants and how to use them in cooking. He's worked with Charcoal Lane, being filmed for ABC's Gardening Australia, and is involved in the delivery of RBGV's Bush Foods and Heritage Tours at Melbourne Gardens. All right, we will switch across to the gardens now. We're so excited to see you all. Let me just move across to their stream. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Well, thanks, Ivy. Welcome, or Woman Jacket, to the Royal Botanical Gardens in Cranbourne. My name's Steve Will Parker. As Ivy said, she pretty much introduced us, so I might go straight into, I'll introduce you to Sam. Sam.
Hey, how are you? I'm Sam. Sam May. I'm a Balladog and Wajak Noongar Marmon of Noongar Butcher. And yeah, just been living over here for 6 years and being a chef, and now I'm talking about bush foods a lot of my time here at the Botanical Gardens.
All right. Well, my name's Steve Will Parker. I'm a descendant of the Boomerang, Yorta and Arab people from up Torres Strait Island. So this is my grandmother's country down here. Feel very honoured to be working on it. Live on Malau, as Ivy said. And I welcome everyone. I'm going to do a quick welcome acknowledgement. So first of all, I'd like to pay my respects to elders both past and present. The elders that are still with us today that share their beautiful knowledge with us all. And I'd just like to acknowledge Auntie Caroline Briggs and Auntie Faye Muir for their support and passing of knowledge and so on to us here at the Gardens. I'm going to give you a quick welcome. So, Woman Jacket Merriman Bekbek Atwan Manyam Balak, Woman Jacket to Boomerang Baranga, Woman Jacket Kirip. So, welcome to our beautiful homes of the Bundwarang, and welcome today, my friends. So, before we go on a tour, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of our very significant plants that we as Bundwarang people use in ceremony and cleansing before we actually walk on country. So the first, we have 3 plants. The first one that I'd like to share with you is the cherry ballard. Now this plant we call Bailey in Bundwarang language. Now this plant is, it's believed that this plant in the wild needs host trees, other plants for it to grow into nice, strong, healthy trees, just like our kids. So this one represents our kids, our bullpups. So our bullpups need our family structure around them, their parents, adults, grandparents to help them grow into nice, strong, healthy adults. So that's what this Bailey plant represents. We use this one in ceremony, birthing ceremony, also sorry business, and also cleansing. It's a nice smoothing smoke. But also too, we do get a berry off this one. This one, it's got a small berry there. And this one, when it's ripe, it actually turns bright red and it's very, very sweet and beautiful to eat. I know when I'm collecting this for ceremony, these trees are all around about wallaby height and kangaroo height. So I'm sure the wallabies and kangaroos enjoy this plant very often. One of the second plants that we burn in our cleansing is the black wattle, which we call Warrigal, this one here. And this one represents our elders, our community, our shelters, our tools, which I'm going to show you quite a few tools through this tour. But also provides a beautiful food too, which is a wattle seed, which a lot of you might have used in cooking or have tasted in different cookies you can get from cafeterias or different cafes and different things like that. But that seed there is in international cooking is called upon majorly. So in Australia, we can't keep up with the demand of the black wattle that's getting used in overseas cooking. So that's Warrigal. The other wattle that we do use as well is main yarn, which is a silver wattle that we can burn in ceremony as well. Then we come to the last one, which we call Beal. This is the river red gum. Sorry, this one is quite significant. As we call it Beal, this one is used with all our mob in ceremony. But it represents all the language groups that make up our beautiful state, with the 38 to 44 different language groups, and then the 300 or so different language groups that are around Australia with all our mobs. And we all use it in ceremony. And there is a big number of species of the eucalyptus. I think there's about 1,700 or so in that. So we also use this one. We carry a leaf. Our aunts always say carry a leaf with you while you're walking on country, which gives you the passport to pass over our country. So I'm going to carry this one with us for our bush tour, and we might get started. So we might go over and catch up with Sam, who's going to talk to us a little bit about some amazing bush food. So follow me. Going this way.
Hey Steve, hey guys.
Hey Sam.
So this is the first plant we're going to be talking about today. This little shrub here grows perfectly in Victorian backyards. And you can grow it in a pot. You can grow it in your garden with ease, and you won't even have to look at it or water it very much. But this is a round leaf mint. Now, of course, it's called a round leaf mint, but it's not very minty at all in flavour notes. It's actually closer in flavour to thyme and is often called native thyme. So it's a perfect thyme replacement you can use for roasting lamb, chicken, all sorts of things. But in modern day contemporary use, we often forget about the medicinal traditional uses of this plant. Traditionally, these leaves, if you were to have a headache, you could just simply chew on them, and the oils in this leaf will essentially neutralize any headache you will have. I wouldn't say it would get rid of it, but it would definitely make it easier to cope with until you end up going to the chemist. So in a way, we talk about healing country. We talk about using these plants in a way that they can also heal you in return, because as Mother Nature, you look after Mother Nature, it will in turn look after you. I'm just going to chew on this right now. Very minty. No, it's not very minty at all, but it's nice and refreshing. But yeah, like I said before, we often call it native thyme because it does taste exactly like thyme.
Can I ask you a quick question, Sam?
Yeah, of course you can.
Do you have to limit how much you would eat of it? Like, can you overdose yourself if you're chewing it regularly?
Absolutely, you can overdose yourself. In fact, often talk about in my garden walks at the Botanical Gardens. If you don't know what native plants are, maybe best to avoid them. But you don't need a lot of that to get the healing purpose. In fact, one leaf will last you all day, so you don't have to strip it bare.
So a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, a little bit goes a long way, and especially with native plants in the flavour notes, very strong in flavour, very yielding in flavour notes. You don't need a lot of them at all, so they're very, very good at self-sustaining in your garden.
Fantastic, thank you.
Come over with me. We've got the macadamia nut here. Now this is actually probably used to be the only Indigenous ingredient produced and commercially sold around the world. But I'm going to talk about another plant, and it's probably beating that at this present stage. This nice shrub here is the lemon myrtle tree. And it's supposed to grow permanently in Queensland, but like the Melbourne storm, it grows very well in Melbourne climate. So in Victoria, you can grow this very well. It's high in calcium and zinc. The leaves fresh, you can put in hot water and you can make a tea. And you have to drink it generally within 2 hours. After that, it's going to go bitter. But you can dry it out and blitz it up. And in its powdered form, you get a longer shelf life. You can put it in a bag yourself, and that's permanent tea bag. Also, the powdered form, you can mix in creams, into cakes, and have lemon myrtle biscuits, all sorts of stuff. But like the native thyme, we forget about the medicinal use of these plants. So if I were to get this leaf now and chew on it, the essential oils in this leaf will actually numb a sore throat. So in a way, if you were to chew this, if you could grow one in your backyard, if you have one in your backyard now, go and chew it and it will taste exactly like a lemon strepsil. So yes, commercially it is dry. Commercially sold, it is dried and blitzed up into a powder form. But when it's fresh, you can definitely have an impact on the uses of the medicinal purposes of this plant. Is there any questions there, Ivy?
Oh, that's fascinating. Can I just ask you, with the drying, is it hard to get them to the right stage of dryness before you store them? Do you need to worry about mold or anything like that?
Yeah, no, not at all. You can just dry it up in a nice, cool, dry area. As soon as the plant, like the leaves start to break, they're generally good to go. So you don't need to be over thinking that at all.
Great, thank you.
Sam, another question from Shelley.
Yep.
She's asking, can you please tell her about the traditional seasons of the year for the Cranbourne Gardens area, and are these seasons the same for the Phillip Island Bass area?
I can't talk about the seven different seasons of the Boomerang because I'm not Boomerang, so I haven't grown up here, so I'm not the best person to ask about the different seasons. But yes, he is right in that we don't have the general summer, spring, winter seasons. We're separated into about 6 or 7 different times of the year when different flowers flower, and of course the chain reaction of how the animals behave around that. So yeah, sorry I can't help you any further other than that.
That's a help, thank you.
So in terms of healing country, and that is the theme of NAIDOC Week this year, and I love this theme, and as soon as I think of healing country, I'm going to automatically think of this plant. So this guy down here, this is the old man saltbush. This is a very hearty plant to grow. And like the round leaf mint, you really, if you put this in your garden, you won't need to look at it, won't need to water it, it will take care of itself. But in terms of healing country, and particularly where I'm from and where I grew up, in the wheat belt region of WA, due to land clearing for farming, a lot of freshwater lake systems have turned to saltwater lake plains. Now, these guys come in handy with that because as soon as you plant them, their roots, they're succulent, so they're gonna draw out any impurities in the earth. So the salty nutrients in the earth, it's gonna draw out and it's gonna obtain in its own leaves. So hence it's called saltbush. So many farmers are now planting this around their freshwater lakes, saltwater lake systems, hoping that in the future, whether it be 10 to 20 years time, hopefully those lakes will once again return to being fresh in nature. These leaves, they're sort of like an apple peel in texture, but you can't actually eat them raw. If you were to eat it raw, it's just going to sit in your stomach and you won't be able to digest it. But you can cook it either by frying it, boiling it, or sauteing it, and then it will become edible. I love frying it because it's basically like eating fried chips. Any questions there, Ivy?
There was one about throwing back to the lemon myrtle, if you don't mind. Just a quick question from Erin Louise. She says, how long would one chew it for the numbing of the throat?
I mean, I just chewed one before and it took not even a minute. It's going to impact straight away.
So very quick.
I think it's very much cheaper than buying a packet of lemon stretches as well, and using
Absolutely.
plastic as well. So once again, keeping a note with Healing Country, you know, plastic pollution is a huge problem in Australia and also the world. So I think if we can go to these natural remedies, things you can grow in your garden, it's one way of healing your country.
For sure.
So over here, we're going to be yarning with Steve. Steve's going to be talking to us about different plants and how we use them in tools in surviving traditionally.
How are you again? All right. Just brought you back over here to this beautiful plant here, which you might know as the Yam Daisy, or we call Myrtle in our language. Now, this plant was used or was commonly found all around our shores of Victoria when the first Europeans first landed. Within the first 5 to 8 years of Europeans landing in Victoria and around Melbourne, they introduced 2 animals that ate a lot of our Myrtle, which was the cattle and the sheep, and which when you come to think of it, none of our native animals, when you have hooves for feet. So they're the 2 animals that we introduced that wrecked a lot of the country that our Myrtle was growing in, and they ate a lot of it as well. But this was a very big stable part of our diet, as it produces a carrot-like tuber down the bottom. We usually use that when we didn't have any meat, whether we couldn't catch any kangaroo or fish. We'd use these. We'd either bake them up or eat them raw. They're very high in a lot of good vitamins, and which is all our Australian bush foods, and bush tucker is all high in, well, they call them all superfoods. So, and one of the tools that we did use to dig up these, is mainly the women would use these, is a digging stick. I've got kind of 3 types here. This one here is a tea tree one. You can see the black on there where it's been burnt, where they've taken the bark off, so it's not rough, it's nice and smooth on the hands. It's got a bit of a sharper end there. And so this was more for digging, this one. And as the women would dig up the Myrtle, they would only take what they needed. So they were I suppose they were gardening sustainably, they were living sustainably. So as they were collecting, they were re-sowing those back in, which was, I think, quite amazing to keep that going. And this is another kind of digging stick. It's got a bit more of a bigger end on here, which you could use for hunting, donging thing on the head or something like that. And the same with this little one here. It's a nice thick area there. You can either use that as a bit more of a scoop or whatever. But and this one here is out of the hardwood. That one's out of tea tree. I'm not sure what that one is out of. Can't remember what that one out of. But we'll use one of these to collect up our Myrtle. And I'll kind of give you a bit of a demo on how they would get it out of the ground. So we actually asked permission from our beautiful co-worker, Jaffa, who's online today. Thank you, Jaffa. We were very cautious of taking one of these out, but we got permission. And I might take one out so you can all check it out. So just here, digging it out a little bit. We'll see what we come out with here. So just you can see the little tuber on there. And there's a few other little ones. I've tested the different ones to these, which are a little bit thinner and longer, and they taste very similar to parsnip kind of stuff there. So what the women would do, or whoever was collecting, would take what they only needed, and then they would probably split this in a half a bit and then re-sew it down like that, and then move on and do the same. So they were only taking what they needed. So it's about gardening sustainably and living sustainably. And put it in there. A nice bowl, coolamon, which comes off the side of the tree as well, which would leave a scar on the tree, which our scar trees are everywhere over our country. The really old ones, the canoe ones, are all registered, most of them. And there's still, you might be walking down the street, you might walk past one, there might be one in the park or somewhere like that, which you might know. Yeah, you kind of got to know what you're looking for. So but I'm going to bring you over here now, and I'm going to show you this beautiful plant that was quite significant to all First Nations people. So this one here is a common grass tree, or called the Zanteria. Now this tree was very special for all our mob, as you see the big flower up the top. We use that flower for something, and then this trunk here would also grab something out of there, which I'll show you in a minute. So that's the Zanteria, or the common grass tree. Do not take these from the wild because it's major fines or jail time, but you can buy them at nurseries. They're quite expensive. And these trees only grow 10 centimetres a year. Now, when you come into the gardens here, try and identify them, as they're part of some of our seek and find cards. And you'll see how old those trees are. They're around about 400 to 500 years old or older in the park here. So what I'll show you here is one of the flowers that we've collected from those that keep getting blown off the top of the trees through really windy weathers. They're quite spiky. This here is quite hard to stem, but you'll see here, this is a stem here that we use. We call that the platform, and in here is quite soft, it's hard on the outside, and that's what we'll use our drill bit to try and start fire. And I'm going to give you a bit of a demo. And the plant also produces another thing, which I'll show you in a sec. So this here, this is called the drill bit, as we would use to start our fire. Now this one comes off a Christmas tree, I think it is called, or Christmas bush, or Corundurk mulga tree. This one was handed to me from a cousin of mine that's his specialty. He starts fires. He's a firelighter. And what we'd use these for is to heal our country, to reproduce. So when Captain Cook and all those first settlers come over here, in those reports, they were saying the country was on fire. There was constant fires everywhere, and that was our mob managing the land, and they were burning that off to regrowth. They could also burn off to hunt as well, but really to keep that bush sustainable, and all our bush foods and tucker, keep them sustainable for our mob. So this one here, the way we would start this was a bit of friction in there. We'd get a hole started, put that in there. I always put a slit down the side so the ember builds up the side and falls out there. And we can use a bit of this stuff here, comes off another plant, which I've just collected for Sam was showing me that. And we either get a bit of bark we could tease up around there. So I'll give it a try, see if I can get some smoke happening. And that platform, you've got to make sure it's a nice dry. It's always good to have your mob around you because this is really hard work, tiring work.
I saw some smoke, Steve.
Yeah, let's get it going. Oh, no, not yet. Oh, there's a little bit. One more. A little bit there. That's actually really hot too there.
Wow.
Now, on the end, you'll get really smooth on the end. So that one there, I've just made it a little bit rougher. Usually get it on the concrete and give it a bit of a scratch. So it gets that friction going in there a lot easier, because you can get them big and smooth like this one here. And then it just runs around it and doesn't really get any friction. Just while you're here, the other thing that come out of that plant, that the common grass tree along here, on the trunk, you'll find these little sap bulbs. Now, this was our first glues and resin. So we'd use this sap. I could knead that in my hand and soften it up. We'd use it to put axe heads on, spear heads, using the sinew from the animal to wrap around it as well. But I'll show you when you break it up, it's a bright orange. And when it dries out onto your tools, it's kind of black, real dark black, red. There we go. So it's a bright orange.
Wow, it's so bright.
Yeah.
Would it need to be heated, Steve, or you could just use it?
Yeah. You need it in your hand or over the fire.
Yeah.
Get it into a soft, sort of doughy, sticky state, and then you can just push it in around what you wanted to stick.
Right.
And put it over the fire a bit more, head up so it sort of binds onto the timber and the sinew that you're wrapping it in. So, yeah, it's beautiful stuff. And then you see these little balls just off you'll see them in the bark or the trunk, and they drop off at a certain time. I think it's around March, April, but I collect them anytime when I can. So, yeah. We might, I'll give you a quick look at some of these other things. Well, I've got them here. Clapsticks, geez, no, these are nice. They're hardwood. Some of our possum skins that we use. This one here's got the Boomerang coming into Nerm, which is Port Phillip Bay, and then Western Port Bay, Murrumbidgee, all the way down to Wilson's Prom down there. That's a bit of my story on that one. Also got a Murrumbidgee. Thanks, Jeff, for getting these made. And some other stuff. We've got the dilly bags, which was weaved out of some of our different grasses around the place. Ones like this. And then the other ones that would make out of some of the plants are the big eel traps, like this one here. It's quite amazing.
Wow, a lot of skill involved there.
But this one here is like a Lake Conda down Western Victoria, was in the World Heritage list of places of where they used to cultivate eels, the Gunditj Mara people. So they'd use different eel traps like this, or fish traps. Different clans and mobs had different ways of making different ones, but also use different pondages areas. We've got the oldest man-made structure in the world, which is in the Warrigal, I think it is, in New South Wales, which has got the oldest fish traps in the world that were man-made. So it's the oldest man-made structure in the world, I think it is, older than pyramids. So them ones, yeah, the dids come from our trees as well. We actually don't make them. Termites do, so do remember that. We only just fix them up. So I might take you over on our journey back to some of our bush foods, which I'll take you over here to Sam. He's waiting over here to show you some deadly more bush foods.
Thanks, Dave. That a bit of sweat coming from the fire stick, was it? It's all right. It's a good little workout, good for pre-season, especially AFL clubs. We talk about hill and country a lot, especially with the salt bush. Another guy that helps these out is the Fingerline species. Now, this is a bloodline, and it's a crossbred from by the CSIRO with the Fingerline and some other citrus plants, and then they've made this bloodline. These bloodlines are quite cool because you're going to get a consistent sort of orangey, blood orange looking segments when you squeeze the segments out. I'm not going to do it to this one because it's a little bit too early. But then there's also the sunrise line, which I'll show you. These guys are quite good because you can actually use the whole rind and everything. If you slice them up thin, you can use the rind and eat it, and they're perfect for adding to marmalades and things like that. These will grow about that big and be bright and yellow. So that's the sunrise lime. Over here, I'm going to show you the OG. This is the Fingerline. Now, these plants are good and they work in tandem with the salt bush, replenishing the land, taking those salty nutrients out of the earth, and hopefully one day the saltwater plains will be fresh once again. So these grow really well in WA, but they do grow really well in Victoria, but a little bit slower. So this guy, also when they fruit, they're going to fruit probably every second year. So getting one of these is a lot of hard work from this plant, but you can put them in very salty earth, even places where you wouldn't think a garden will grow, and these will grow quite well. The reason why the blood lime and the sunrise lime are pretty cool is because if I were to cut this open, you're going to be surprised as to which color you're going to get. You can get pink, green, yellow, red, depending on the different variety of finger limes. So it's always going to keep you guessing. That's why it's always good, especially when you're cooking at home or cooking in restaurants, to be growing the sunrise lime and the blood lime species, because you're going to get a consistent product every day. So it's pretty self-sufficient. And when you grow it yourself, you're not going to be wasting a lot of plastic in the earth. Any questions about the sunrise lime and the blood lime or the finger lime, Ivy?
How do they go in wind, Sam? Are they all right in a windy garden?
Yeah, it's pretty windy here this morning, but the wind's died down and this guy's still here. They're quite sturdy as well, and they're really hearty. So yeah, it's really, I don't want to touch it too much because there's all these tiny little thorns on it.
So you've got to be pretty careful when you're harvesting.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, the best time to get them is when they just fall to the ground naturally, and that's the best time to get any sort of harvest fruits.
Is it like that with the Myrtle too? Is there a point where, like with potatoes, where the tops die back and you know that it's time to dig them up? Is Myrtle similar, or is it more that you pick a few that look bigger when they get large?
Well, generally when they have the daisy, and hence the name Yam Daisy, and it's a little dandelion, you can blow it and make a wish. But also when you look at the flower petal, it's going to go into a question mark. And then what that question mark is telling us is to, hey, look down. I've got something for you. So, in ways, nature is going to look after you by giving you little subtle hints and clues of when's the best time to eat them.
Great tip.
In terms of how nature can save us as well, is when the Europeans came here and they set up the first farm over in Sydney, they in fact brought down the wrong crops. They came down in winter, so they brought winter crops with them, unaware of the southern hemisphere is going to have the total opposite season. So when they tried to grow these plants from England, they were in fact dying. So these English men and women, they were in fact starving because they couldn't grow anything to live on. That's where this guy came in. This is Warrigal Greens. Get you a nice little bit to talk about. This is Warrigal Greens, also called native spinach, New Zealand spinach, or Botany Bay greens. Now, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation saw that the English people were starving and felt sorry for them, because we've got to remember that the invaders, they weren't really invaders to our people. They were, in fact, our ancestors in spirit form coming to visit us. So when the Gadigal people saw the English starving, they felt very sorry for the people. So they taught them how to grow this. This grows very well, and it saved a lot of people's lives. And what I mean by it grows very well is, in fact, I've got it in my garden at home, and I actually kind of regret growing it because it's just taken over everything. You don't need to water it a lot, and it'll grow very well in a shady area as well. To cut it back as well, you can just snip off the vines and then just pick the Warrigal green plants that you will eat straight off it, and constantly trimming it back will keep it in check. But you can't eat it fresh because it's exactly like the salt bush. If you were to eat it fresh, your stomach won't be able to digest it and it'll just sit in your gut. But, however, you can blanch it, you can fry it, or I like to saute it in a pan like spinach. And I love growing this at home because there's nothing worse than buying a bag of spinach, and by the time you actually feel like eating spinach, you got to open the bag and it's all off and rotten. Whereas if you grow this in your garden, you're going to always have fresh spinach.
How long does it have to be cooked for before it's safe?
I think when you're blanching things, I always got taught to get the water up to the boil, put it in. Once it's greener than it normally is green, that's when you're good to go, or as soon as the water comes back to the boil.
Okay.
Sam, we've also got a question about the limes, going back slightly.
Yep.
Can they be grown in pots on a balcony?
Absolutely, they can be grown in pots in the balcony. And in fact, they're going to grow slightly smaller, but what they produce are going to be far more juicier than a bigger sort of tree. So yeah, absolutely, you can grow them in a pot.
Fantastic.
So we're going to go over here because we've got Steve. He's going to be talking a bit more about some Indigenous tools.
Hi, you guys. Back again. Thought I'd show you a few of the tools that that we use in education and ones that I make at home, and different things come from our bush. So here's some nice fresh ceremonial boomerangs. Not quite complete yet. We have a whole range of different boomerangs. So we've got the ceremonial ones, as I showed you there. These are my whale singing boomerangs, as I do ceremony for whale each year as they migrate past our island. Another set of ceremonial boomerangs. Actually, I want to show you this part here. As I showed you earlier, the xanthan off the common grass tree, the resin, that's the resin in there, how red it is and what it comes out. So what I've done is done some etching into the boomerangs, and I've filtered that or pushed that resin into those markings there, which they come out like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So
it almost looks burnt, doesn't it? The colour.
Yeah, it does look burnt, but it's actually isn't. It's just the red, and I was actually melted it in there, and then I had to sand off the top edge, but it was still red left in there. But yeah, they're the ceremonial boomerangs. We have these types. This is a 7. We'd use that for hunting and battles with other clans, I suppose. That was a 7, but these ones are from Queensland, these ones. The way we'd use that 7 would be with a shield like this. We do a dance with these 2 instruments or tools, and these were used to pull that down from the other person and striking. So, and this here is a traditional shield. This one actually was made by JT and Amos Roach, who's some other clansmen and countrymen from Jabberung. They come down to my country. They brought me a gift as I traded a gift back to them with some of the rocks and stone tools that I make. So, yeah, that's a 7. This is a shield, another shield there. And then I've also got the returning boomerangs like this. Now, these ones here got shape. The way they return, we've got one edge thin there like there, which we call the foil. And then it's the opposite edge on this side. So with a returning boomerang, you throw it from this one, there's a right-handed one. And then over the back there, you'd have a scallop out of there, which helps it return as well. Now, you throw them like this, you catch them like this. You don't want to catch them like that. You might take fingers off. But they're made out of, mainly out of the roots of the plants, like the river red gums that would come down on the side of the river. And so you've got to think about the root system. So they're hooks in the ground, like the 7 boomerang that I showed you. They're like a root system that comes down, and you'd go along the riverbank and you'd see some of those root systems coming out, which you could cut off and turn into boomerangs, different boomerangs. But something I want, have a look on the $50 note, and there's a guy on there called David. He's got something to do with a boomerang and something that he invented. So maybe follow that up if you like. What else have we got here?
Steve, before you keep going, we've got a few questions for you. Can I just?
Yeah, no worries.
So Shelley's wanting to know if you know about the seasons of the Phillip Island areas.
The different seasons?
Yeah.
Well, Bildwadung people we had 7 to 8 different seasons. Mainly 7, but I sort of add a 8th season on there because of the fishing down that way. So the snapper season comes around, and that's that's sort of varied over 2 to 3 months through the year. Yeah, but there's about 8 different seasons. I couldn't name you all of them off the top of my head at the moment. But yeah.
Too many. The other questions we had were actually for some of the items you showed us last time, and which were so with the fur ball. Could you tell us a bit about that and what that was for?
That fur ball was called a Marnrook. So that goes back to where AFL football came from. So it was actually traditionally played on Gunditj Mara land. Then it was brought to Melbourne, and they played with a possum skin ball. So that's where our AFL football actually come from.
Might have been a lot more comfortable to kick one of those than.
Yeah, definitely. But we didn't have footy boots either, so
no, that's right.
The fur ball was quite easily to kick.
And Ern wanted to ask, how long does it take to make a fish trap? From when you were showing us, I think the eel trap that you showed us.
Oh, the eel trap. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head because I haven't actually made one myself. My grandmother was a basket weaver and she made them, but I couldn't tell you how long they take. And the ones that she's got on display at the Cultural Heritage Trust are only mini ones that you'll see in the glass cabinets there.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure. Like you'd have to dry the grasses out, where you'd weave it with the green grass. But as you'd have it in the water, that would keep it moist. But if it dried out, like that one that I showed you there is getting quite dry.
Yeah.
They'd last a lot longer because they were in the water constantly. But I couldn't tell you how long it would take to
no worries.
actually. Depending on how long you've got, if you're sitting around all day, yarning around fire or something, I suppose you could make something pretty easily and through that whole day, but I'm not sure. And time, to our people, what was time? We didn't have time to say anything about it. Yeah.
There's been a follow-up question to the seasons question, which from Claudia, wanting to know how you think climate change is affecting the seasons, whether you're seeing any impacts.
Oh, definitely. I've seen, I suppose living on Phillip Island, I've seen our snapper season 2 to 3 months out.
Wow.
And that was through the El Nino effect, I think. I think we're in El Nino, or I can't remember the one that we're in now, but it's actually coming back. But I did notice it was later or they were coming in earlier. But yeah, there's definitely different changes. But also look at it, we're only pretty young to that, so I don't know, different seasons and changes might be over a longer time than we think. So changes I kind of keep an open mind on that, and it could be maybe a 200 to 300 year season. Who knows? Things are changing with the environment that we are in. So I just try and keep an open mind in that way. But yeah.
And a question in regards to your boomerangs. Someone called Kylie wants to know. She's looked up her name and it says it means boomerang. Is that true?
Yeah, I have heard that. I've heard boomerangs being called Kylie too. I'm not sure. That's in, I'm sure, Sam's language, WA, Noongar language. So yeah, that's an okay.
Does that wave mean yes? Yes, that's true.
Yes. I couldn't tell. I can't remember the name in Boomerang language for boomerang. Sorry about that.
No worries. Go on.
We've got a couple more here. These ones here. This is called a Wumra. Now these go together with our spear. You might have one of these at home. A modern day Wumra that actually throws a dog ball. So that those dog ball throwers, they're kind of invented from this thing here, which helps us with our spear. Now, if I was going out hunting for a big grey, I'd use one of these, or fish. So this here, not that one. This one here, down the end. So if you're hunting a big grey, like so, you want something that's, I'm sure you've all seen those big reds and greys. They're pretty muscly, like like, what's his name? The Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So there's some of them pretty big, and you want something to give you more power and distance. So, or else you're going to have to stalk them right up to really close. So this here gives you a bit more extra length in your arm and kind of like a slingshot. So just like the dog ball throwers. And also too, our Australian rocket launch pad is named after the Wumra. This one here is a spear for more hunting. We'll use different rocks and stones for different ends, or bones. Actually, we use them for the ends of spears as well. But this one I've just done out of wood, carved that out. You can see there it's pretty blunt. It's been thrown into a few things. But yeah, one more I suppose I've got. This one here is this one's a hunting boomerang, killing boomerang. It's got a snake on it. Actually, me and Sam seen a snake today, a tiger snake. It was pretty cold, and we were quite surprised that the tiger snake came out. But yeah, it's a kind of like a 7, but a hunting boomerang. Now, I might throw you over to Sam over there. He's got a few more bush foods to talk about.
How you guys going? Yeah, speaking of snakes, I'll tell you what, every stick I see today is actually a snake now. From that. This guy here is Warrigal pepper, or mountain pepper, and it grows around the mountain regions of Tasmania, Victoria, and New South Wales. Now, these guys are really hearty, and it will grow really well in your gardens at home, especially in the Victorian climate where it's a little bit cold. These are really handy to have around because there's nothing worse than running out of pepper in your pepper grinder, having to race down the shop just to buy another pepper shaker or another peppercorn packet, because the use in plastic is actually piles up over time. So these guys you can actually take raw. You can chop them up and use them in that sort of way, but the best way to use them is to dry them out, the leaves, blitz them up, and they're going to be like a green sort of powder. It's a perfect pepper replacement. They also have a little purple berry when they fruit. That berry is basically like adding chili to your dishes, as well as food colouring, because it would actually dye it purple. But a nice hit of chili, similar to Szechuan peppers. And I get people to eat the pepper on my tours. I let them know first. And the heat from this pepper leaf actually is longer lasting than your peppercorn, with a little bit of sweetness at the end. Just got to work really hard. Also, right next to it, you can grow this at home as well. Doesn't grow very big. But these leaves here, this is strawberry gum. So these leaves here, they have an oil in them, and the medicinal purpose of this oil would also numb your throat. So I like to call the lemon myrtle the lemon strepsil, and this would be your strawberry variety of a strepsil, the oils, and this will numb your throat if you have a sore throat. But also they taste like a lot more than strawberries would taste. In fact, you can dry these out, blitz them up into a powder, and I like to chop up my strawberries and then put that powder on strawberries, so people will think that I have the best growing strawberries out there, when really it's just this guy. The flavour note is really high as strawberry, and like the best way I could describe it, if you were to eat a lolly that has strawberry flavouring, it would taste pretty much like this leaf. So you can blitz it up once it's dry, and then add it to different creams, different custards, ice creams, whatever you can think of, you can add it to. I even think the coolest and new way of using this is actually the leaves themselves and actually storing it in vinegar. So you got that alkaline of the vinegar flavour, the bitterness, mixed in with the strawberryness, the sweetness of the strawberry gum is a really cool flavour note. Something really funky and cool I've been doing lately.
Sam, we've had a question about from Miriam. Do the bush plants attract insects or other predators that we should be aware of?
Well, you've seen a bit of this dirt lifted up. I guarantee you it's not a snake hole. But there's ducks that come through here and like to chew around and eat around here, and they also like to dig and lay their eggs. But in terms of native animals, you know, bees are the most important sort of animal in the world.
Yeah.
Without bees, we probably wouldn't last very long because they pollinate the flowers. So things like lemon myrtle, lily pillies love bees because, you know, pollinating the world. But also in terms of animals, I've seen possums You know, you grow new trees, and possums are always going to eat the fresh new leaves. But I always see them stopping at pepperberry. So I've seen pepperberry sometimes have a few little nibbles taken out of it, and then that's it. So it keeps them away. But in terms of native animals, bees are the most important ones that you want to attract into your garden, and having things like lemon myrtle. And there's not just lemon myrtle in the myrtle family. There's cinnamon myrtle, there's licorice myrtle, there's anisey myrtle, heaps of different kinds of myrtles. You can plant all these myrtles in your garden along with lily pillies. You know, you're going to have a lot of bees hanging around you.
Beautiful. I think your mention of the snakes has inspired someone. So Shelley wants to know how snake bites were treated traditionally.
I think snake bites, you know, keeping your heart rate down is important. So as soon as you get bitten by a snake, traditionally we'll dig out a trench, lay in that trench, and just keep as still as possible. The more you move, the more you panic. Your heart rate's going to be racing, pushing the venom around. It's not going to be good for you. So I think if you ever get bitten by a snake, the best thing to do is to lay down, chill out, and hope for the best. Easier said than done, though. And I'll tell you what, that snake I saw this morning, I saw that snake, and like Wingardium Leviosa, I was straight on the Steve's shoulders.
Yeah. As soon as he jumped on me, I knew there was a snake. Is there any other questions that you would like to ask us fellas?
A couple of people have asked about where to get the plants and seedlings. I know that there's been plant sales at the gardens before. Who grows those seedlings?
The gardens themselves, I think.
Yeah, the volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers or friends of the gardens that come in and get a lot of the plants that they do have sales with to grow those. But they're, I think they're every quarter.
Ben's kindly told me that it's the 9th and 10th of October from 10 a.m. is the next one. Just wondering, how many of the bush foods are available at those plant sales? Do you know?
I know there's usually the midgeonberry is there, which I'm not sure we spoke about midgeonberry, did we?
No, we didn't speak about midgeonberry.
Midgeonberry, there's... I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, sorry, Ivy.
Sorry. I could have answered to that question, Ivy.
Yeah.
If you're over in the city, there's a place called Westgate Biodiversity. So if you were to buy an Indigenous plant from Westgate Biodiversity, a percentage of that, the profit from that plant will go straight to the Boomerang Foundation. So in a way, you know, you're helping the Boomerang people by going to the Westgate Biodiversity.
Great. Whereabouts is it?
Near Westgate Bridge. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I use GPS a lot. And
So Google it and you'll find your way there.
modern black fella.
Terrible.
Absolutely. That's
I use the stars. Something before we sort of say goodbye. We're for our NAIDOC theme. We've created these seek and find cards. So if you do come into the gardens, please come and grab one of these. They're free. A few things that you can find on here that hopefully you can identify within the gardens. You tick them off. We've got language names with them. And then there's a few questions on the back about different things that you can try and find. And then we've also got our Bush Foods tour on here. So this has got all the information that I think it's all the plants that we did speak about today and some more, all the uses and different things. And I think most of the plants that we have here are grown in our nursery and our volunteers grow. So try and get to the sale on those dates that Ivy said, and you'll get some really, really cool bargains. I know I always go home with about 20 plants after that sale, so and give them out.
Fantastic.
But
So the garden's open for visitors at the moment, isn't it?
Yep.
And are the tours running?
What's that? Sorry.
Are the tours running at the moment, or just self-guided?
Not really. Yeah, they are with the Friends of the Gardens. I think they are running. The little bus thing that runs around as well is running as well. So we're pretty you just got to do your QR code when you come in. Make sure you wear your masks when you're up around the cafeteria and gift shop. So
Fantastic.
Yeah. Also, if you're in Melbourne and you can't get down to Cranbourne, on a Monday, I do the Aboriginal Heritage Walk. So if you come in and do that, you're lucky enough to get me, so I can elaborate a little bit more on bush foods and what we've got going up at the Melbourne Garden.
Brilliant.
And the beauty about these cards, I think you can use them on both sites, so whether the Cranbourne and Melbourne site. But a few things I'd like to say is just to everybody that's here, as our theme is healing country, like think about what you are doing in your life to help heal this country and help our country be sustainable. So whether it's thinking back to or thinking to what you're leaving for your grandchildren's children. So the footprint that you leave, so making little changes in, could be just recycling it, might be using your car less, helping out beach cleans or in the bush or different things like that. Just be mindful and think about what you're leaving for the other generations that are behind us. So that's also about healing country. So anything you want to?
Oh, just absolutely. Picking up rubbish is the easiest thing you could do. You know, in terms of healing country and what the damage plastics and rubbish does in general to local creek systems, Darebin Creek, Mary Creek, creeks like that. You know, there's always rubbish around there, but it's never too hard to just pick it up and throw it in the bin.
Yeah. 3 more questions for any of you fans out there.
Jaffa, I know you got a question or two.
There was you've kind of answered it, but Ern asked if someone wants to learn more about native plants and their uses, where would they go?
Come to us.
Come to you. Perfect.
Come to us.
Yeah, come to us, or there's a lot of books out there that can help you out. Listen to your elders on what they've done, because they've got a good idea of how to grow plants. And but yeah, just get out there and get out amongst the bush and amongst the environment and check it out yourself. And and then come and see us here, and we can help you out.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, guys. That was amazing, and really just a fantastic message there at the end. I know I'll get out there with my kids picking up some rubbish. I'm sure it'll be a good project for the rest of the school holidays anyway. Now, I just wanted to quickly mention that if you have questions or if you need to get in touch with the Royal Botanic Gardens, their website is www.rbg.vic.gov.au. And for NAIDOC, if you want more information about NAIDOC, you can visit www.naidoc.org.au as well. Just again, that plant sales coming up on the 9th and 10th of October, and you can pick up those cards that Steve and Sam mentioned before at the Visitors Centre. Thank you so much to all of you at the Royal Botanic Gardens, but especially you, Steve and Sam, and Ben behind the camera.
Yeah, can we just get a shout out to Ben behind the camera?
His arms are going, holding that knife straight and steady.
Amazing camera
so
work.
Appreciate Ben for what
He
he's
must
doing.
have really tired arms, so we very much appreciate your hard work.
Those fingers look blue.
Shout out to Jaffa. Hope you heal up well, mate. And yeah, we'll catch you when you get back. So happy NAIDOC, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your NAIDOC week.
Yo.